Okay, well, welcome. We're going to take a look at evaluating expressions. Now, the first thing you might wonder is, well, what in the world does evaluate mean? Well, evaluate means to calculate or come up with a simplified way of expressing the numeric expression. So we're basically going to perform operations until we can't do that anymore. So let's take a look at this first one. All right. Evaluate the expression for the given values. So they're giving us these values, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write I'm going to write the expression, and every time I come to a variable, I'm going to insert the value for that variable. So if m is -3, I'll put the -3 there. If n is 4, I'll put it there. Now, the rest of this is order of operations. You notice there are no variables. And that means that I'm going to be able to come up with an actual numeric answer, okay? And I'm going to make sure it's simplified as much as it can be, meaning I can't perform any more operations. Operations are add, subtract, multiply, divide, or exponents. Okay. I guess I could include grouping symbols like parentheses. So, okay, so this right here is multiplication. This is addition. So we'll want to refer back to the old PEMDAS acronym. Now, acronym just means letters that stand for a phrase. So this is parentheses. This means exponents. You've learned this in pre-algebra, excuse me. This is multiply, divide. Now, multiply, divide is always from left to right. And then add, subtract is from left to right. Now, here's what that doesn't mean. That doesn't mean that if I see multiply, divide, that I have to do the multiply before I do divide. I'm actually going to do whichever comes first in moving from left to right. Whichever comes first, moving from left to right. So here we go. The first thing that I see here is that there's multiplication, and that is going to trump addition. So I'm going to have to do this first. So this right here is just -6. Oops, not sure what that's doing there. Just a minute. Okay, let's try this again. All right. Interesting. Okay, so -6. Now plus the 4. All right. So I have -6 plus 4, and now obviously I don't have multiply, divide. I'm down to add and subtract, and so I'm going to obviously just do this last operation, which is a -2. Pardon me, I'm not sure what's wrong with my writing board. And there is the answer, simplified. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, so on this one, I have a lot for which to substitute. So here we go. I'm going to write it. I actually do like to start with a template, and I recommend this so you don't forget to use parentheses. Actually, I think I'll move that plus down. Okay, so now, if I remember correctly, my obviously, the n is 4. The m was -3, and the y was 5. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what we have. Now, on this one, I have a fraction added to a fraction. So the operation here, addition, is going to happen as soon as I get these fractions down simplified. Well, I notice that this is 2 times 4, so I need to multiply that together first. So this is going to be 8 over -3 plus -3 over 5. Okay, and now I'm ready to do the operation of addition. However, I don't like how this negative is down there on that fraction than in the denominator, and it's up here in the numerator on this one. So what I'm going to do, I should have had equals there, is I'm going to change the negative to the top of both of them. And that's okay to do, right? You can't add a negative, but you can move the negative to a different part of the fraction. All right, so it's still a negative 8/3 plus a negative 3/5. Now, what I'm going to do in adding and subtracting fractions and mixed numbers, or improper fractions, you want actually most of the time to have, for adding, you want them to be in mixed numbers instead of improper fractions. So I'm going to change this to negative 2 2/3. Okay, that is the same thing as negative 8/3. Okay, so there's that. All right, so now I'm ready to look into adding these two fractions together. The only thing about this is that they don't contain the same denominator, and you know that adding fractions requires that I have the same denominator. All right, now when I say adding, I'm adding because both of them are negative. So I have a negative plus a negative, and the answer will be a negative. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this over to the side, and I'm going to line it up vertically. Hopefully, your teacher back in 3rd grade taught you how to add and subtract vertically. And that's actually what we're going to do here. So I'm going to add the two together, but I'm lining up the fraction part. You notice how I lined up just the fraction part. All right, I'm going to write equivalent fractions. Leave the 2 there because it's part of the first one. Now, what I'm doing is I'm looking into a 3 and a 5 and seeing what is a common multiple. And that means this. If I skip count 3, and I keep going, of course, that's an infinite number of those. And then if I skip count 5, where is it that they'll land on the same number? Well, I can see that they're both landing on 15, which means that that's my common denominator of 15, right? This is Algebra 1, so this is just quite the review here. So now I'm going to multiply that by 3 because that's how I got the 15. And so then there's the top 9. That's going to be times 5, and that's the top 10. So now these fractions are rewritten in equivalent form. Okay, so this is, I'm through with this part, and now I'm just going to add these. So I have 10 fifteenths plus 9 fifteenths is 19 fifteenths. And I have 2 plus nothing is 2. All right, well, I know this is an improper fraction that is 1 4 fifteenths. I add that to my 2 that's already sitting there, and I know that my answer then is 3 4 fifteenths. And I know that it's negative because I already determined a negative plus a negative is a negative. Okay? All right, let's go to the 3rd out of 4. 3 out of 4 here. Let's take a look at this. All right, still evaluating. All right, so I'm going to substitute. So here I go. Oops. Excuse me. Okay, here we go. There's the M, there's the N, there's the minus. Now, some people might want to do this, might want to change this grouping symbol to a bracket, and that's only because once I use my own parentheses for these right here, you know, it looks kind of redundant to have so many parentheses. So this one right here actually becomes the bracket like that instead of a parenthesis. So you can do that, and it's a little more clear what needs to be done first, second, third, and all that. Here we go. Now, we're going to put in a negative 3 for the M, a 4 for the N. The X was a 1, and the Y, and the N, pardon me, the N is a 4. All right, let's go ahead with our PEMDAS operations. That's any parentheses that I see, I'm going to do those first. Now, what does that mean? It means it can get it down to a single number. Okay, you're going to reduce that down or use operations to get it into a single number. Well, that means this. That means this is going to become a 7. Okay, and now I have that 1, whoops, and I have the 2, and I have my negative 3, and I have my 4. All right, at this point, I don't have any exponents, but But I have multiply and divide, and I'm going to do those from left to right. So the next thing in line is to do this, which is negative 12. And I'll leave that just parentheses. All right, notice I'm doing one step at a time. One step at a time. Here we go. The next thing is either subtraction or multiply and multiply. Well, what has to happen is we have to do the first multiply that we come to right here. We have to. Okay, so let's, oops, pardon me, got a problem with this pen right here real quickly. There we go. So this is going to be a 2. That's a 7. And here we go. Now, the next thing I have to do is the multiply. It has to come before subtraction. Has to. All right, because of PEMDAS. So, again, each time I perform an operation, I want to rewrite my expression. All right, and I'm running out of room, but I'm going to go ahead and say that this is negative 6? And there's your answer, negative 26. Okay, the very last thing I did was add subtract from left to right. Okay. All right, last one. Now this one looks really complicated because it's going to have almost all the operations that I can do. But I have lots of parentheses to use first. Here we go. M is negative 3. Y is 5. N is 4. And X is 1. Here we go. All right, so PEMDAS tells me parentheses first. Now, look at the parentheses. All of the parentheses are already down to one number. So that means there aren't any parentheses steps to take. Okay, just because you see parentheses doesn't mean that you'll be doing that step, because parentheses again means to get it down to one digit if you can. All right, so now we're going to look for exponents. There aren't any. And now I'm going to look for multiply and divide. Here we go. This one is divide. I do it. So what is 3 divided by 5? Well, it doesn't go in evenly, so I'm going to leave it as 3 divided by 5 as a fraction. Right? So first one goes in the box, so that would be this, right? And that's going to be a decimal. And so what I'm going to do is just leave it as a fraction. Now I'm going to recopy everything else. Okay. Now, the next thing in line is subtraction and then addition. What do? We continue on into the add and subtract. What do we have to do first? Well, whichever one is on the left. Remember, from left to right. You don't go get the add first. You do the left to right, whatever shows up. So this is what we're doing here. So I have a negative 3/5 minus a 4. Well, this minus is the same as plus negative. Now I see that that's real easy. I have negative 3/5 plus negative 4 is negative 4 and 3/5. Okay, so now last thing is to do my addition. In this case in particular, though, it is actually a subtraction because it's negative plus positive. So I'm going to take away 1, right? Here's what I do. Line them up. 3/5 take away nothing is 3/5. 4 minus 1 is 3, and there it is. Negative 3 and 3/5. And there's your answer. Okay, sure hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching.